All right, if you're just joining us, a quick reminder that we will take questions at the end of the session. Please submit your questions using the questions tab located at the top of your screen. If we don't get to your question, please know that someone from the Neo4j team will reach out to you directly, or simply send an email to webinar@neo4j.com and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. Also, feel free to use hashtag Neo4j or hashtag connections to post about today's event. With that, I'll hand it over to Lance Walter to introduce our next session.
All right, thanks, Marilee. Greta Workman works on our product marketing team with a focus on helping our customers showcase their success with Neo4j. She's a 6-year Neo4j veteran and actually originally started on our field marketing team. She's got a bachelor's degree in economics from Columbia University and a Bachelor of Arts degree in political economy from Barnard College. Our next session features Greta as well as Eric Wespi from Boston Scientific. Eric's going to tell you a little bit more about himself, his background, and the company in the session. So let's go ahead and move into it. Welcome, Greta and Eric.
Thanks so much, Lance. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a great Connections Day, our first one of the year. Exciting stuff. I have with me today Eric Wespi from Boston Scientific. Eric and his team have been Neo4j users for quite some time now, but have recently joined us on Aura Enterprise. So we're going to talk a little bit about their journey with Neo4j, how they're using it at Boston Scientific, and a little bit about Aura Enterprise as well. So Eric, I think let's just start by having you introduce yourself and Boston Scientific.
Thank you, Greta. Yeah, my name's Eric Wespi. I manage a data science team at Boston Scientific, and we work within the manufacturing organization. So Boston Scientific's a large company making medical devices, and we're pretty highly vertically integrated, and so we're within that manufacturing and operations organization.
Cool. And can you describe a little bit about how you guys are using Neo4j?
Yeah, I think because we're in manufacturing, we're focused on a couple key primary use cases. We're looking at quality and investigations, understanding events that happen within our factories, how we can investigate the root causes and find solutions to those. And then more typical things like yield improvement and optimization of those processes. We're exploring other things like understanding how our devices are used and how customers refer each other, things like that. But for now, we're pretty focused on the manufacturing and operations side.
Cool. And how does that work exactly? Can you talk a little bit about like the high level data model and how Neo4j fits into that application?
Sure. So all of our medical devices, a single medical device represents the combination of dozens of components, often multiple factories, different countries involved, right? Several different processing technologies. And so what our data model is really a representation of those processes. We have nodes for batches or units, the different process steps they go through, certain measurements and other inputs to the overall process. And those nodes are all connected via the manufacturing transactions and the process steps that they go through. So we build that representation of end-to-end, the internal supply chain, how we build a part from the beginning to the end, and what happens along the way. So for example, you could look at our graph and you can infer what the BOM is, what everything went into a part, for example.
That's great. How are you doing that before you brought Neo4j in?
It was a bit of a mess. In some cases, it just wasn't being done. So some of these quality investigations, the types of analysis that we're doing now just weren't really happening because it was challenging. In other cases, it was just a collection of SQL queries. We have a number of relational databases that have this information, a bunch of Excel sheets, general frustration, and hand-wringing. So I think it took a lot of time. It was really complex manual work by engineers, and usually it was engineers, it wasn't data analysts, right? So people that aren't familiar with the databases, pulling data and trying to put it together in a meaningful way. And they just didn't have the tools to kind of put that together and the complex supply chain together for analysis. And I think what that leads to, and what it was leading to, was that an engineer would go spend days or weeks on these analyses, and then they'd come back and no one in the room would be certain of the results. So there's just not really, a lack of standardization and a lack of confidence in what we were doing.
And so what made graphs the right solution, and how is it helping your application there?
Yeah, I think because we can represent that entire supply chain, and we can have it loaded and ready, we're not doing a lot of the work of that analysis was just to put the data together. And so now that data is in the database. So putting the data into the database can be a simple script that can be validated and understood. So that there's a lot of speed in doing that work. And there's also additional analysis capabilities. So when you're doing those things manually, you're making decisions about what data you're getting and how you're getting it. And there's certain analysis that just doesn't really work on like a long, complex path in Excel. So that's big, the speed and the capabilities. But also, I think another one is just the standardization and the approach. We're not wondering how someone did something because they used it the way that we've prescribed. So I think those are really big benefits there to how we go about like a quality investigation.
And you guys are doing some analytic work on top of that too, right? Can you talk a little bit about like the graph analytics part of it as well?
Yeah, so when we load all that data in, we might have some kind of event, a quality type of event at the end of the line, say. And so what we're trying to do is highlight and conduct the root cause analysis of what might cause that event. And if it's manufacturing related, we don't know where to start. So we're trying to direct teams and say which material, which batch, which process might have been most correlated with that quality event or number of events. And so some of them are really straightforward. I mean, we don't have to go really into super complex PageRank algorithms or really complex graph algorithms. Just the structure itself allows us to do chi-square analysis or like basic scoring methods, where we can use common statistical techniques because of the way the data is structured. And so we're using the graph as a way to, we have the data in there. We're not just, the value isn't just that the data is there. We have that data in relational databases. The value is that the relationships can be analyzed. And so we put the data in the graph, calculate some features, assign those to the nodes or the relationships, and then we extract those features again. So we do some analysis to create features in Cypher. And then when we pull that out, we can do more standard statistical analysis of that.
Cool. Can you walk us through kind of what the process was for bringing Neo4j into Boston Scientific? How'd you get buy-in? How did this process start?
It's a good question. It took a bit of time. What we started with, we're bigger now, but we were a really small team. And we started with Neo4j Desktop or Community Edition back in the day. I think we learned a lot. We started with just let's learn Neo4j, let's learn Cypher. There are a number of articles and training materials and stuff on websites, and it was kind of like looking at these things. What do we see that inspires us? Like what do we have that same problem that could be solved in that way? So it was about finding a good problem that aligns with this. And really making sure we had that problem. And then we were working within the Neo4j Desktop thing to just demonstrate some value. This could have some legs, and say, we can solve a problem in this way. And then it was about finding a sponsor that could, pay for a more capable license to grow that data set. And then after that, it was sort of, there were like 2 or 3 of us that knew this and were excited about it, and we had someone paying for it. But from then it was kind of like, let's grow the internal community. And that can be tough in a company. We're not a tech company that has like a whole bunch of people using graphs, right? So it was about really demonstrating the value to people and educating them. So there's plenty of people interested in analytics. You can say, hey, let's talk about graphs and what you can do with graphs. And then you could kind of find more use cases and more excitement in that way.
Yeah, and for your the project that you found, did you have any kind of metrics that you had to meet going into that, or any sort of like success goals that you were working towards? How did Neo4j help you kind of meet those goals?
Yeah, it's for us, because we're the primary, like the initial use case was really about quality investigations. It's more about discovering things we wouldn't otherwise be able to find, and can we get to a root cause faster. So what we've done is some historical analysis where we already know what the root cause was, and then we apply these algorithms and say, well, would we have found the root cause using this graph? And so we can kind of demonstrate the value and say, look, you'd find a response, in a few minutes or an hour maybe, using this analysis method, whereas it took you, months to find that root cause with the standard methods. And that's a really compelling argument when you're talking to vice presidents or whoever about how to what kind of technologies you can apply in those situations. So it's about how long the analysis takes, but just looking at the time isn't really the time savings isn't really getting to the full story. It's are you finding things you wouldn't otherwise be able to find?
Yeah, and what has feedback been like from your internal users on this application? Have you gotten any feedback?
It's been great. I think we have a lot of, I'd say, repeat customers. People saying, I'm on this other project now. I want to use this technology. Calling us up and setting up meetings and things. There are also, what we've seen is really cool is we have some customers that are saying, that's really cool that you're able to find that. I want to be able to do that too. So getting them on the platform, teaching them how to use, some basic Cypher queries, for example, teaching them about how this model is designed and kind of getting them on the path to playing with themselves. So it's kind of growing customers, internal customers, but also practitioners, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and actually I want to kind of double click on that as well, because I think that's kind of a common reality for us at Neo, is we have a couple of great champions at customers that want to kind of grow and spread the use of graphs within the company. Do you have any advice for people that are kind of similar to yourselves as kind of the Neo4j gurus of their companies? How do you get the information out there in the world?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you just talk about the technology, it's really hard to get that engagement. For us, it's been about, hey, we found this cool thing. Mm-hmm. We found a root cause really fast with some new technology, and they go, wow, I'm interested in that. And then you can kind of get into what a graph database is. I mean, I think just the display, even in Neo4j browser, gets people excited. They love seeing the bubbles and everything moving around. So, depending on the audience, that can be another good method. But I think it's really about showing that the bar isn't that high. When you can talk really technically about graphs and graph algorithms, and it can start to sound really really intimidating. But I think if you start to show people some little Cypher things and playing around with the play data sets and stuff within Neo4j, you can start to show people that this isn't a difficult thing. You can demonstrate how easy it is rather than how difficult it is. And I think that's another good way to get people building the practitioner base.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's talk about Aura a little bit. So you guys are recently joined at Aura Enterprise. Can you talk about why you guys felt like Aura was the right way to deploy Neo?
Yeah, we're really excited about Aura. As I said, I manage a data science team. We're not an IT team. We're not within IT, and we aren't database administrators, as our initial efforts with Neo4j would demonstrate. So we aren't trying to keep the database running, make sure it's configured properly, scaling properly to different growing data sets, things like that. We don't want to focus on that. We don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We'd rather spend our time on the data model, on the analysis, and on the movement of data in and out. So I think Aura really, because it's a managed service, right, it helps us focus on those things and focus on what we bring to the table, and not all this other administrative stuff. And I'd say, IT's really supportive of that too. They don't want to be, having a new database dumped on them to maintain, right? So yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, and how has the process been? Do you have any advice for people starting out on their Aura journey?
It's been awesome. I think we engage and it's amazing. Like, I have people reaching out. I have regular checkpoints. I submit a ticket and I'm immediately talking to developers, and they're pushing fixes and stuff. And it's amazing. It's been really smooth for us. So yeah, I think just reaching out and getting started is great. I think the fact that it, at the different price points, it scales really well. Like a pay-as-you-go type of service. So I think there's a lot of compelling reasons to get going.
That's awesome. So what's next for the project at Boston Scientific?
It's it's about, for us, it's about, we started a little bit narrow within manufacturing in terms of how many databases we had. So for us, it's about expanding that, bringing new data sources in. The data model, when you start to whiteboard these things, or play around with what that data model is, it's really easy for you to start brainstorming, like, what if we could also connect to this other thing? What if we could connect to these other, let's build an enterprise knowledge graph, right? So for us, it's about bringing in the other data sources and seeing how that can help us solve the current problems better, but also what kind of new problems can we solve. So I think that's where we're at, is like bringing in new data sources, and then also kind of beyond manufacturing. How can we connect the supply chain and the manufacturing to things that happen post-market, or like how our devices are used or designed, or so there's a lot that it kind of goes in a lot of different directions, and it's about engaging the practitioners and making sure that we're all everyone's empowered to kind of start moving along those lines.
I always kind of joke that once you bring Neo in, it's kind of like a snowball of innovation a little bit, because you kind of start being able to say yes to new projects and to new ideas, and then it's kind of like, all right, what else can we do next?
Yeah, it's amazing how it's an engine for creativity. Right? People just start to brainstorm all kinds of new use cases. So we've got NLP efforts and other all kinds of things going on. But
that's great. That's great to hear. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. This is Eric Wespi from Boston Scientific. I think we've got a couple of other talks from you as well up on our website. If you want to dive deeper into the Boston Scientific use case, there's also a case study that we'll link to. But thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope the rest of the connections goes well for you. And Marilee, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Greta. Thank you, Eric. Always a pleasure having you with us. For those in the audience, just stay tuned to the next session. Peek Under the Hood of Aura is coming up. So we'll see you in that session. Thanks so much.
Thank you.